Welcome to Intuitive Transformations with your host, Sylvia Henderson, and discover tools, wisdom, and inspiration that will empower you to transform your life. Sylvia is an intuitive life coach and energy healer with a growing practice that is focused on empowering others to be more of who they want to be. For the next hour, join Sylvia and explore and unravel anything in the way of you creating the life that you would love to live on the OMTimes radio network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intuitive Transformations radio show on the OMTimes radio network, the voice of consciousness. I'm Sylvia Henderson, your host, broadcasting live from Kirkland, Washington, right here in the Pacific Northwest. I'm just minutes away from Seattle, and I am very excited to share with you all another really fantastic show today. Linda Howe, who is a leading expert in the field of Akashic Records, will be joining me on the show. She's going to share from her vast wealth of knowledge on the Akashic Records. And she's going to explain what the Akashic Records are, why they are so important, how you can use them to better understand your soul's path and life purpose. And Linda is also going to share how you can take your life from ordinary to extraordinary. So if you are looking for more clarity about yourself, your soul path, and your purpose, you are in the right place. And I encourage you to download and share today's show with your social media community as soon as it becomes available tomorrow at podcast.omtimes.com. That's where you'll find it. That's podcast.omtimes.com. And to learn more about me, please visit my website at intuitivetransformations.net. That's intuitivetransformations with an S.net. And from there, you can learn more about what I do. You can check out testimonies from my clients, and you can book a personalized session with me that we can do via Skype or by phone. And I also provide in-person appointments to those who live in the Seattle, Washington area. Just let me know what works best for you, and we'll make that work. You can also send me an email. That would be great. My email address is Sylvia, and that's Sylvia at intuitivetransformations.net. I really do enjoy reading your emails. And yes, I get your emails and I read them. So keep them coming, especially if you have a topic that you would like to have me cover on a future show, or if there is a guest you would like me to feature in the future as well. Now, also next week on Sunday, November 15th, I will have Belinda Womack, the creator of the 12 Archangels University, joining me. And we are going to talk about angels, of course, and her new book, Lessons from the 12 Archangels, Divine Intervention in Daily Life. And then the following Sunday, on November 22nd, I have Alex Hermosillo joining me from Phoenix, Arizona. Alex is an exceptional healer who I'm really excited to share with you all, and he has had a fascinating and very inspiring journey of spiritual awakening, which all began as a result of his near-death experience. And today, as I mentioned earlier, I have quite the show in store for you. I am incredibly excited to have Linda Howe join us to talk about the Akashic Records and her brand new book, hot off the presses. It just released in February this year. Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, Taking Your Life from Ordinary to Extraordinary. Before I bring Linda on, though, I want to tell you why we are so fortunate to have her with us, joining us today. After nearly 2 decades of spiritual searching, Linda Howe encountered the Akashic Records in 1994, and since then she has been deliberately engaging them for personal growth for herself and for others. In 2001, She founded the Linda Howe Center for Akashic Studies, which is located in Chicago, where she has worked with thousands of students using the Akashic records for personal empowerment, consciousness development, and expanded spiritual awareness. Linda Howe also provides training through live and online classes, personal consultations, her books and audio sets, including her award-winning book, How to Read the Akashic Records and Healing Through the Akashic Records. Linda Howe works with all who seek transformations and enlightenment. And she is here to share her wealth of knowledge of the Akashic Records and her latest book, which I mentioned, Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, Taking Your Life from Ordinary to Extraordinary. Linda resides with her partner of 3 decades and their son in the Chicago area. And you can learn more about Linda Howe by visiting her website at akashicstudies.com. And Akashic is spelled Akashic, akashicstudies.com. Linda Howe, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much for inviting me, Sylvia. I'm just delighted to be here with you today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here because because of your knowledge of the Akashic Records. There's so many questions I have to ask you about that. And then also I just love your energy and your vibrancy and how delightful you are. So this is going to be such a fun show. And I think everyone listening is really going to enjoy this today.
Oh, good.
So you really are a pioneer in what you have done, being that you were the first person that made the Akashic Records actually accessible to anyone who wanted to learn them.
That's right. And I didn't realize I was doing that. All right, let's talk, Sylvia. I mean, but you know what? I mean, it's such a big. It really is. It's a radical. It's a radical time in human evolution and awakening, and in these times of dramatic change, right? It is time for dramatic solutions, right? Powerful, potent resources to really enable us in a strong enough word to really empower us to launch into the next era. And the Akashic record, interestingly enough, I don't know. I think for people who are listening, I mean, I think it's probably a good idea to say, what is the Akashic record? Okay.
Akashic Records primer here, Okay.
Here's what it is. Now, it's so interesting because the word Akasha, that is a Sanskrit word. And what it means is primary substance, that from which all things are formed. So what we're talking about is the essence of the life force before we get to it, right? With our feelings and our thoughts and all of this, before we start entertaining it. So it's really the raw material of life. Now, Akasha, it's like I said, it's a Sanskrit word. And I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Chicago. And when I never, what is this Sanskrit? Where I'm from, we don't know from Sanskrit. But anyway, it's a very foreign sounding word, but the experience is quite familiar. And it's familiar because it's the archive of the soul, right? And so what the Akashic record is a collection, if you will, of all souls. It's the collection of all souls and their journeys through time, and everyone's included. Now, I know when I first went, back in the early days, in the old days of the New Age, right, I learned that the Akashic record was like in stone somewhere in India or something. And it turns out
like karma, right?
Like really etched in stone, unbudgeable, untouchable. And it was only for ascended masters and saints and mystics were the only ones who could connect with the record. And at the time that was actually true. But it's interesting because the record, every set of records, like your records, Sylvia, mine, everybody's records has two parts. And the first part, it really is fixed. And what it is, it's like like, you know how you have a fingerprint,
Mm-hmm.
but so in the record, it's your soul print. It is the etching or the blueprint of your divine potential. It is who you are destined to become over time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then what travels along with that are the stories of the lifetimes you live through which you awaken to the truth of who you are. And this happens over many, many incarnations.
So wait a minute, Linda. You mean in different lifetimes I've actually awakened? I've already beat myself to the chase here.
Well, here's the truth, right? From an Akashic perspective, what we see is that the purpose of the soul's journey as human, right,
Mm-hmm.
is to awaken to the soul's perfection and to live the magnificence of our being while on earth. Very
Right.
easy to do when we don't have bodies, right?
Right. Exact. And all these sensations and emotions that we're battling
That's right.
and
And we
judgments.
right, judgment and fear and all of this, right? And we get here and it's like, so the opportunity of the human journey is, can I know the truth of who I am and really express my divine potential? And we do that incrementally over many, many lifetimes. So the fact that you're here, actually, you have this whole practice of working with people. You do these intuitive transformations. You're doing that work. You didn't just wake up this lifetime, Sylvia. The fact of the matter is, you have been developing and cultivating these sensitivities of your being over many incarnations.
Wow. Well, this is going to be a great show, Linda. I want everyone to please stay tuned. We're going to head into a break. We'll be back in just a few moments. And when we return, we're going to continue our conversation with Linda Howe, talking about the Akashic Records. Please stay tuned. You're going to really enjoy this show. There's so much here for you.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you bought into the idea that you have to work hard for your money, that business is hard? I will share some dynamic access consciousness tools to get you out of your own way so you can create a business that actually succeeds. Join me, Simone Millisers, on The Joy of Business at 4 p.m. Mondays Eastern.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts Cielito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. This is Sylvia Henderson with Intuitive Transformations, and I have with me Linda Howe, who is the absolute expert on the Akashic Records. And before we went to the break, she was sharing about how our Akashic Records are actually in two parts, and that the first part is a fixed part, and that's our divine potential. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes.
That we work through over lifetimes. But then there's this second part, and this is now the part that contains the stories that's mutable, that we can change?
Yes, do you know what? It's actually evolving.
Okay.
Because what happens is we go from lifetime to lifetime, awakening to our soul's perfection and growing into, like if there was one common theme that all souls are engaged in, it is we are all growing into the experience of unconditional love.
I
First,
agree.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a challenging concept for human beings. It's almost, anyway, it's a new idea. Let's face it. This is a very new idea. Even I don't know, like I know my parents and certainly, just the generation ahead of us, people weren't interested in unconditional self-love. There were other virtues considered much more important.
Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, when you think about the history of mankind, truly, self-love, really unconditional self-love, it is a foreign concept.
It is a foreign concept, and it's interesting because when Jesus the Christ arrived, this was his message.
Yes, it was.
Right? And it's taken us 2,000 years to get used to okay, we've tried everything else. Maybe we'll try it. But it's interesting because in the record, what we see is that the opportunity as we go from lifetime to lifetime, growing into the experience of unconditional self-love. And that is, it's really quite remarkable because the opportunity is, it's easy to love myself when I'm, a saint, when I'm a Mother Teresa, but can I love myself when I am an international drug smuggler?
Right. Or
And
when
so,
you've been guilted into feeling that you aren't worthy of love.
right, which used to be in traditional religions, that was held in a very high esteem. Like the more self-loathing you had, the more God would love you or something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was
So
the old school of thought.
that's
It's
the
quite
old
a paradigm shift.
it is a radical shift. It's radical, and we are the first ones learning it.
And that's why it's so difficult.
And that's why it's difficult. It's not like we can look to, listen, Sylvia, you understand this. It's not like we can look to, certainly we can't look to our parents. They're like, they're like, be careful, please be careful with that self-love. Don't get carried away.
Right.
See, it's a new idea. And we are the first generation in history to be, I want to say experimenting with it. Like, can we really move into this? And we are shifting from the idea of self-love into the practice, into the experience where we really have kindness and respect for ourselves no matter what. So it's a very, as you know, it's the most exciting time in history. It's that we've had in a long time.
Well, it's really interesting because there's such an extreme contrast between self-love and self-loathing in our society today.
Mm-hmm.
So how does one use the Akashic records to move from this immersion of self-loathing soup that we all are kind of experiencing? We see it in the media and in our lives and just our own internal dialogue into this realm of absolute truth, which is unconditional love.
Okay, this is a great question. Great question. Okay, so I think what's really important is the more we understand that the Akashic record is a sanctuary, it is the soul level dimension of consciousness. So it's our own soul. Okay, and so that's what it is, that's where it is. It's embedded in our soul. And right, and so in this, it's so funny. I just got lost. It's like I went there. I'm like, I have to reel myself back in.
So you were talking about how it's embedded in our soul, but you didn't exactly say what, and it was about how to self-love.
Here's what I want to tell you. Mm-hmm. This is what's really important. The more we understand, the Akashic record is the convergence zone of infinite love, wisdom, and power. So it's not just like universal mind or the heart of the universe or the pulse of life. It's where the three converge.
That's such a great distinction. Thank you for painting that.
Okay. And it's the context for all of life. Okay. So it's like if life were the yolk,
Mm-hmm.
right? The records are the record. Well, if life is the egg, the records are the shell, right? The context for it. So, but here's the thing: when we work in the record, I teach a very effective and simple way to consciously and deliberately access this Akashic realm, and it's with this pathway prayer process. Very simple. It's in all my books. It's on my website. And in the saying of the prayer, we have a subtle shift in awareness so that we can enter into this realm. And it is a sacred realm. It's not, it's really a lousy oracle for divination. I mean, if you want divination, there's so many other better things. I say get a good astrologer, a clairvoyant, not the...
So it's really not to portray your future obstacles or challenges. It's more of a template of who you are.
It's a template of who you are and the opportunity. It's as if you look to see, who am I from the perspective of my soul? Who am I and how do my life challenges line up with this, right? How, to begin to see and know ourselves and the struggles we face from the perspective of the soul. Okay. And so the more we understand it to be like a sacred realm of a spiritual sanctuary, a realm of reverence, of kindness and respect, what happens? I know what happened for me, Sylvia, is I would go into my records all the time. I came upon this, my father was dying and our son was a little boy. And I mean, it was life, right? I was in the life sandwich at the time. And, I really had ideals for myself that I would handle all of the stress with great grace and poise. And, the truth is I wasn't always that graceful, and often the poise left me. And so I'm like screaming at the kid and crying about my father. I mean, the whole 9 yards, having a full out human experience. And I have to tell you, I would go into my records and I would sit there because remember, it's a sanctuary. And I'm like, I want to be able to, I want to be a better parent and I want to be a better daughter and a better sister and a better partner. And I keep falling short of my ideals. And here's what I get in the records. It's all right. I'm like, excuse me? See, I'm not from it's all right. I'm from do it, work harder, be better. And
fix this, right?
Fix this. And what's the matter with you? And no matter what I brought into the records, I was met repeatedly with this infinite kindness and respect that struck a chord of tenderness in me that honestly, Sylvia, almost scared me. Because I could not, in this space, I could not convince whoever this is spiritual realm, I could not build a case for my own unworthiness.
That's beautiful, though.
I know it's beautiful. No one was more surprised than I was. Right?
So in this, okay, so you go into the Akashic records and they say, oh, it's okay. It's okay. But does transformation happen through the Akashic records in your life?
Aha! Yes. Because see, here's what I've learned. That transformation occurs through acceptance.
See, isn't that true? This is the Course in Miracles too.
Oh, is it? It's released through acceptance. That until there is complete acceptance, there is no release. Because energetically, we cannot let go of anything we condemn. Condemnation is like crazy glue.
Yeah, it is. Okay? It is. So it just makes it stick to you longer.
Forever. So the idea is first is awareness, then the next step is acceptance. And then we see from the records that every choice we've ever made, every decision, every action taken has all been an effort to experience more love and peace and security and all these things, that there's no malice.
Wow.
And as we begin to understand and recognize and appreciate the choices we've made, whether they're choices we made in this life or prior life, that is what enables us to really, I want to say, surrender into, relax into who we are, let go of the judgment, and then you know what happens? We are free to become our greater selves.
So in a sense, when you say let go of our judgments, when you enter into the Akashic records and you're met with this unconditional acceptance and allowing, that you get into alignment with that, or does it just experiencing that begins to shift and change your heart and your perceptions?
It changes your heart. The first thing that goes is resistance.
Right? That's a big one.
It's humongous.
Yeah.
Okay, so the judgment goes, the resistance goes. And then see, life is within us trying to find its way through. I mean, we are all so filled with love, but the love is stuck, right? Because we're we have to be a certain way and all this. And what happens by working in the record is we open up to who we really are. And little by little, right? Little by little, let's say the hardness of the heart begins to soften.
Oh, that's gorgeous. That's beautiful.
We transform.
Absolutely. How can you not? And that's the whole thing. You have to have an experience of unconditional love in order to give it. You have to have a frame of reference.
Well, and it's the law. The law has it that we can only transmit what we've got. That's all we have to transmit.
Right. Wow.
And until we've had an experience like that or along that line, we don't have it. We can have a lot of ideas about it, but see, what makes the critical difference, and we are in the age of spiritual experience, not the age of spiritual ideas.
Well, I love that you've explained it like this, Linda, because I think you've expelled a lot of disillusionment about, or confusion rather, of what the Akashic records are. I think that most people listening had a different idea of what, it's someplace you go and you can foretell your future, or you can change your direction of your life, but it really is through the heart. And when we're getting ready to go into another break, and when we return, I want to talk more about some of the things you have in your book, especially the 6 pillars, and then also the triangle that has to do with the mind and the will and the heart. Great. So we'll be back in just a moment, everyone. Please stay tuned. You're listening to Intuitive Transformations on OMTimes Radio.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I've tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
If you remember living fearlessly, joyfully, and in a world filled with adventure, happiness, pleasure, and unbridled living, then this show is for you. Join me, Dame Nicole Brandon, as I bring you the world's top experts in wealth, creativity, flow, seat-edging technology, space, wellness, health, love, lust, and passion, all merging together each week here at the Hub of Happiness. Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Time and 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Passionate Living, where you can ride on the magic carpet ride of living and learn how to lead a passionately wild, exciting, and outrageously amazing life.
Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com. Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hello and welcome back. This is Sylvia Henderson, and I have with me my very special guest, Linda Howe, and we're having a fantastic conversation all about the Akashic Records. And Linda has done a beautiful job sharing exactly what it is. It's a sanctuary. The Akashic Records is the source of all that is. It's a place that we can go to heal our heart and step into that vibration and energy of unconditional love. And I want to talk about Linda's latest book because in it she brings forth a concept that I don't believe she's written about before. And this is about the 6 pillars. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that and why they are so important, especially in relationship with the Akashic Records?
All right. Okay. Yes. So here's what. Do you know what? It's such a big. I
know it's a big thing.
It's a big thing, and you know what? It's a big thing, and I love it. Right, Sylvia? I love it. So here's what I want to say about this. In my own journey, I realized, great. So I found this wonderful method, and then I experienced like this tremendous personal healing, and I found myself venturing out into the world. And what kept happening was that I would be like, oh my God, I'm too sensitive to be in the world. And I found that being spiritually awake, instead of being more effective in life, I seemed to be backpedaling. Now, I thought something's terribly wrong here because really one of the great features of the New Age is that this is a time in history where our spirituality propels us into life, not away from it. Okay?
I have to laugh, though, because what you just said prior to that, I'm like, okay, that's my life. Keep going.
Well, see, so I go into my records and I'm like, how do I do this? How do I maintain my spiritual integrity? Really, that awareness, that awakening. How do I maintain that and engage effectively in the world, right? Instead of being a basket case.
Right.
Okay, so here's what I find. Here's what happens. I have this awareness. You know how at the core of our being, there is a central pillar of light. You know that it's at the root, moves up through the trunk of the body, out through the crown of the head. And this pillar is infinite grace. It is light. It is love. That's what it is. It's profound. And it's the core pillar. And then surrounding it, I saw 5 smaller pillars. And they were embedded like in the pelvic floor, moving up through the trunk of the body, out through like the ceiling of the heart center. I didn't know what this meant. So what that indicated was that I had some work to do, right? So I started to explore this in my records. And lo and behold, this is what I found. First of all, it's as if these pillars are an internal structural support, right? Making it easier for that great light within to shine out. And then for life to come back in, right? Because it's a reciprocal relationship we have with life.
Yes, that makes sense.
Looking, like if I were hovering over myself, looking down, was a 5-pointed star. And it turns out that each one of these pillars, the 5 surrounding pillars that are smaller, each one of them is a link. It's like a portal, perhaps. It's a link between our internal reality and the world. So the first one, let me tell you what the 5 are. The first is their incarnation, authority, discipline, responsibility, and commitment. Now, I have to tell you something, Sylvia. These aren't words. I like words like light and love and a day at the beach and fancy dinners. I mean, I don't. What is this discipline?
Right,
Anyway,
responsibility.
ouch, right? Like, ouch. So here's what. So one at a time. So here's the idea. The idea is to, through the Akashic records, right, working in our records, clearing up confusion about these concepts, because these are concepts that give us a way to engage in the world. Right? We have to make peace with all of these to be effective in the world. And each one of them has a spiritual root or a spiritual essence. So incarnation is the first one. And that's very simply really making peace with the fact that we are mere mortals, that we live in the paradox, like the paradox that I am, yes, on one hand, I am infinite, eternal, immortal, unlimited. That's all true. I also happen to be 5'2".
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
saying?
I have a human body, and and these are some, right? There are some there are some would seem to be contrary realities here. But the challenge is for us to be fused, right? To live from the inside out. And when I make peace with myself, is that who I am as a person, who you are as a person, for anyone listening, who you are as a person is your soul's first and best choice at this point in time. And once we make peace with, and the family of origin, oh my God, the ever popular family of origin.
That we all chose.
But to see this not as not as a punishment, not as a mistake, but like, this is the best family. This is ideal. This is optimal, not for comfort, but for soul growth and awareness.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So, for some people who have really extreme family of origin experiences, who, even though they're spiritual and they go, okay, I get that, but they're having a difficult time integrating what you've just said, only because it's such an extreme. Is there a way through the Akashic record? I guess it's that heart opening again of acceptance.
Okay. So I'll tell you what, working in the record, to actually see that out of all the families, right, out of all the families that I could have possibly chosen, I picked this one. My soul, in partnership with the divine, selected this family, and selected this family because this is the lifetime in which, I don't know, I mean, it's different, a little different for everybody, yeah. Mm-hmm. But I know, it's like, oh, this is the lifetime where I learned to love myself in the presence of people who will never understand me. This is the lifetime where I am challenged to let myself be free in a family that is over-coercive, over-controlling, and driving me crazy. This is the lifetime where I, see, as we begin to explore these things in the records, we see this is the lifetime where I am the conspicuous black sheep, right? So that I can learn to love myself without the approval of others.
That's powerful.
These are, so there's, and depending, I mean, we all have different, there are different variations on some of these themes, but especially in some of these very, very challenging family of origin. Listen, I understand this in my work in the records. This is not lightweight. I mean, it is deep and it is rich because there are so many on the spiritual path who really are confronted with a very difficult human circumstances. And sometimes for old souls, it's easy to love people when they're nice to us. Very hard to be loving, patient, and understanding for people who are downright awful. Now,
Yes.
I'm not saying we have to have dinner with them. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying to allow people to be jerks.
Who they are. And that's
Right.
acceptance.
And that's acceptance.
Not feeling like you have to change them or fix them, and just accept that's a tree is a tree, a chair is a chair. That person's a jerk.
And that person's a jerk. And that is being a jerk is a spiritual path.
It's a spiritual path because they're taking on that persona, which is not a fun monocle to have to wear, I'm sure. So there's incarnation, and then there's authority. Is that correct order?
Yes. What's next is authority, and authority is all about. For me, a lot of this was clearing up confusion that I developed in the old days of the New Age, right? But authority. As a human being, there will always be authority greater than myself here on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I may certainly be God in my own universe, but I am not the God of the universe.
Right.
And the sooner I make peace with that, the better. Then what happens is I step into the circle of life. I step into the reality that on this planet, the perfect authority of the God force comes to us through imperfect agents. And I have to live with that paradox. And when I do, I receive the riches of greater life force than ever before. I get more energy, more aliveness, because I have accepted that the perfect power of life comes to us through imperfect agents.
And therein, I'm sure that the one thing that butts up against that is that feeling like you have to control everything.
Well, and the thing is, I think to really get it, that you can't control everything.
Exactly. Right. And we all know that.
Right. We know it, but there's something, I think, especially here in the especially in America, we're like, something's wrong. I can't control everything. To really make peace. Do you know what? Yes, I'm an infinite being and I am a mere mortal.
Exactly.
And it's all true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So real quick, before we go to the break, the next one is discipline.
And discipline is all about developing appropriate structures. Discipline enables us to handle more energy, right? Mm-hmm. Through discipline, we weave energetic structures, right, so that we can accommodate more energy. Discipline is wonderful, and it tames the ego so we can hear the inner voice.
I love that. So discipline's not as a mean, ugly monster like I thought it was going to be.
I thought it was punishment. I mean, can we talk? Let's talk about confusion, Sylvia. I thought it was punishment. It's not. It's different.
I am happy to hear that.
I know. We're all off the hook.
Well, everyone stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few moments. And when we return, we're going to continue our conversation with Linda Howe and talk about the other pillars of consciousness. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The cutting edge of conscious radio. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
What if living didn't have to be so serious?
What if you could move beyond your problems with greater confidence and ease than you've ever imagined?
Throw your labels out the window and join the Irreverent Therapist for practical tips and a very different way of approaching the changes you would like to create.
Marilyn Bradford
and Pam Hodling
have empowered hundreds of people to come out of self-judgment, quit looking to experts, and begin to create the lives they desire.
Join us Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Irreverent Therapist Show.
Looking for inspiration?
Want to be inspired?
Not sure where to go?
Find Mark and Kim every Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern on Inspired Living.
Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual.
Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake. Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Intuitive Transformations with Sylvia Henderson, and I have with me Linda Howe, and we're talking about her brand new book, which I really want to encourage you to get, and it is called Discover Your Soul's Path Through the Akashic Records, Taking Your Life from Ordinary to Extraordinary. And I want you all to know that when you read this book, everything you need to know about how to access the Akashic Records, the prayer that Linda has created that thousands of people have learned how to use is in this book, as well as what we're talking about right now, which is the 6 pillars of consciousness, and even more. Which is something, hopefully we'll have time to talk about that triangle, that inner triangle as well. Before we went to the break, we were talking a little bit about discipline, that it's not a mean, angry monster that I thought it was going to be. Nobody likes to hear discipline. It always sounds like punishment, or suffering of some kind. Mm-hmm. And Linda has safely dispelled that fear of mine, thankfully. And now, Linda, can you talk a little bit about responsibility? That's the 4th one.
Yes, I love responsibility. Now, I haven't always loved responsibility, Sylvia, of course, because I used to think if I were really spiritual, well, first of all, I would live in a warm, sunny place with a balcony, and I would sit there and drink iced tea all day, and I would not be bothered by anyone.
With an ocean view.
Right. That's right. Let's not forget the ocean view. But you know what? So here's what it turns out. It turns out that responsibilities, our human responsibilities that we have, to ourselves, to the people we love, we really are interdependent. Nobody's here to go it alone. We're here to work through life. Life is a we process, right? Mm-hmm. And responsibilities, true responsibilities, are the crucible through which we are transformed. Our personalities are transformed. So by engaging in responsibilities, I'll tell you, I learned this when my mother was dying, and she was, she's in a nursing home, a lot of, it was a very tough time. And our son was a teenager. Nothing funny about teenagers, unless you're the teenager, right?
Exactly.
But when you're the parent, it's really a little hair-raising experience. And I'm in this situation, and what I realize is that the responsibilities that I have to the people I love are the opportunity for me to let go of the limiting patterns, to let go of my fears, to become the person I am meant to be. See, responsibilities refine us.
Yes, they do. And the way you have shared that is perfect, spot on. I totally agree with you.
So that's it's a game changer.
It is.
So responsibility is no longer something to be avoided.
Right. And it takes you out of victimhood as well. It gives you responsibility for yourself, owning your judgments and acknowledging them and releasing them and letting them go.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is, so we have our responsibilities, that are who we are as human beings, growing, changing, evolving, refining, right? And then we have commitment. Now, commitment is I love commitment because commitment, very close to responsibility, but different. What commitment does, commitment keeps us attached to the path. When the going gets rough, and it will get rough. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Life can be bumpy, right? It's a bumpy ride sometimes. It's not personal. And so commitment keeps us attached to the path. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting. every path has within it all kinds of gifts and blessings and riches. I mean, we know this intuitively, right?
Mm-hmm.
The question is, how do I get the goodies out of my path?
That is the question.
That is the question. Here's the answer. You ready?
Yes.
Commitment. Because see, once I'm committed to the path will release to me everything I need to realize my destiny. But see, the path, I used to think, well, let's see if the path will let's see if I'll get the goodies, then I'll make the commitment. But no, first I make the commitment and then the path gives to me. So it becomes, we're turbocharged. I mean, we see this in people who are on their path, and they are lit up. They are alive.
They're passionate. They're excited.
Right. And it's like, and everything works. Even when it's hard, sometimes it works. That is the result of commitment. Commitment unleashes the riches of the path.
Wow.
Okay. So once we clear up, we move into right relationship with these concepts, planetary life is no longer so scary. And the light that is at the core of our being shines freely. See, we don't have to generate light. The truth is we can't generate light. I mean, that's a little delusional. All we have to do is kind of clean the windows off so that
the light can shine through. And that's the grace.
That's grace.
Beautiful.
And that's grace. And then, grace is like, I don't know, it's like fairy dust or something. It just makes life better.
It's the cotton candy.
It is. Oh, I like that. I can taste it. Yes, it is.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, so we only have a few more minutes left. I do want to talk about this inner triangle, the mind, heart, and will, because that seems to be really important.
Oh, it is very important. So all right, here we go. Here's what the triangle is. Now, listen, we all understand for many years, the last 30 years, we've been working with the heart-mind paradigm. And I remember in the 70s, we were all like in shock when we realized the mind and the heart were connected.
Yeah.
Who knew? It was like, oh my goodness, it was hair-raising, but it was profound and exciting. And it is so true and so accepted in the mass consciousness that even Fortune 500 companies embrace heart-mind.
Absolutely.
So, because the bottom line. But see, there's more. This is the age of will and purpose. And the will is the point through which the soul manifests its intentions here on earth. And so what we're doing dimensionally is we're breaking open into the triangle. Okay, now tripods, as you know, are very stable. Mm-hmm. And I know everybody I know want to be able to handle more light. But the truth is, the more stable you are, the more light you can accommodate. So what we want to do is get our hearts, minds, and wills in our own balance. And so anything we want to do, if it's a discipline, if it's a dream, if it's a goal, what we do is we take it to the triangle. So I take it to my mind and I ask myself, is this a good idea? Does this make sense? Because the truth is we won't let ourselves do or have something if we don't think it's a good idea. So that's our first step. Then we go to the heart and we ask, how do I feel about this? Because the truth is we won't let ourselves have things unless we love them. And they make us happy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And finally is the will. And the will is, am I willing to get off the couch? Am I willing to get up from the kitchen table and take the action today? Never to do the whole project today. No project is ever done in a day. I mean, my goodness, look how long it took them to build those pyramids in Egypt. So, but the will says today, am I willing to take the necessary action today? And that's your triangle. And by doing those, by taking I like to take anything from a discipline to a project, I'm working on a book right now, and I think it's a good idea. My mind says, yes, this is a good idea, Linda. These are good ideas. My heart loves it. I'm like, oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. And my will is, I am mostly happy most of the time. It's hard to write. It's hard to sit still, right? To sit down and write. Do you see? But this is because so many of us are trying to make things happen. Like, this is the real key to manifestation.
This is important.
This is the way to do that. Because the truth is, the universe wants us to have what's ours.
Exactly. But we get in our own way.
Right. So these are all practices and protocols to get us out of our way, to relieve us from the fears that cause us to obstruct ourselves.
Oh my gosh, that's so important, Linda.
Yeah. And then this is what facilitates the shift from ordinary to extraordinary living. So life looks very much the same, but our experience is that we are nurtured and sustained by the lives in which we find ourselves. And that is a dramatic change for so many, many of us. So, and you're right, in the book, the Discover Your Soul's Path, everything is in the one book, right? How to read your own records, everything it's about the records, everything you need is in there, clearing away obstructions, and then how to proceed. Taking these steps so that you can the exercises are in there, the explanations.
There's meditations, everything's in here.
It's all in there so that you can, because you know what? This is time for anybody who wants to be able to activate this shift within themselves and live the destiny they've been dreaming of for probably centuries.
And it is so about time. We really need this.
Yes.
We're ready and we're hungry for it because, healers, light workers, those that people are waking up like popcorn. And so this is a perfect book for anyone who's beginning their spiritual path or if they've been on their path for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Linda, thank you so much for joining me today on the show. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to have had this experience with you and to have been able to share you with my listeners. And I plan on having you back again if that's okay with you.
Thank you. Sylvia, it's wonderful to be with you. Thank you so much. It's really been a real pleasure to be with you today.
And the pleasure's been all mine.
Okay.
So everyone, thank you so much for listening. I'll be back again next Sunday, same time, OMTimes Radio Network. And have a fantastic week. Thank you for listening. Bye.